Welcome to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, here to share some amazing conversations. We're talking business, health, making and saving money, or starting something epic. Think of this as your go-to spot for stories that do a lot more than just kill time. They spark ideas, give you a boost, and perhaps even change the way you look at the world. I'm pulling in the experts, the thinkers, the doers, and the dreamers. We're about to dive into stories that open doors and ideas that light up your brain. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Stef Carlstedt. How are you today, Stef?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. I think it's going to be great.
And me as well. I shared before we hit record that I'm so excited to learn about what you're going to be talking about today. But just to share a little bit more so the listeners have an idea who you are, Stef, you are the founder and owner of Stef Carlstedt Coaching, and you're a certified human design coach and business mentor. And we're going to talk about what human design is in more depth as we get into this conversation. But really, just to share, you help entrepreneurs and everyday people to figure out how they can ditch the kind of one size fits all strategies to unlock clarity, confidence, and success in business and life. So let's jump into it. Again, thank you for coming on the show. Would you tell us how this journey happened for you and what led you down this path?
Yeah, for sure. So I have always been someone that felt like I didn't quite fit into the mold, the normal trajectory of life that we're taught, that society says to graduate high school, go to college, maybe get the graduate degree, get the perfect job, have a family, and then work forever. And I knew that didn't fit me, but I still followed that trajectory because my parents said it was normal. Everyone around me was doing it. So I did end up getting my graduate degree in social work and got a job right out of that at a children's hospital. And I immediately felt like I was shrinking. I wasn't understood. I didn't feel like I could use my voice the way I felt like I was meant to. And my dad was actually diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's probably a month after I was and got that job. And it was kind of the pivotal moment for me. And I want to say it broke me wide open to, I need to figure this out. I need to figure my life out. It didn't feel good. So that diagnosis actually started my trajectory here. I walked out of that job. Was it terrifying? Yes. I had 3 small kids and a husband that I needed to help, pay for things at home, but I also knew that I didn't have another choice. And so I needed to be with my dad through that disease. And I started a business. I dove into the online space. I started a health and fitness business, built that for 10 years. And I fell back into the normal trajectory of doing things as far as business growth. I followed all the gurus. I did the trends. I did the messaging, the way we're supposed to build. And I lost myself in that business and I grew it big. I had thousands of clients, hundreds of people I was helping with build businesses as well. But I felt empty inside. And 10 years fast forward, I lost my dad to that disease. And it was one of those things where, again, grief broke me wide open. I went internal. I shut out the world. I was gifted human design by my sister-in-law, and I started to read. And it was the first time I felt like I understood who I was and why I always felt the way I did. And I just kept reading, kept diving into it. And I became a better parent, a better spouse, a better business owner. And now I build my business completely helping people basically redesign their life and business based on how they're meant to.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that it's so important that, we learn about ourselves to be
Yeah.
fully and truly who we're supposed to be involved in the world and sharing and creating and whatever it is that we need to do, that part that we need to play in this life.
Yes.
And so I think that it's interesting that you had this experience with your dad that really was the catalyst that said, this way that I've been living that I thought was the way to live is not the way to live.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were in a way given a gift in that time then that you learned about yourself and you were able to spend with your father. And so that's amazing. And now you can share all of this brilliance with us. And so thank you for that. So let's dive into what human design is, what it means, and how we can use it to help us.
Yeah. Well, it kind of going into what you mentioned earlier where you said our role here in this stage of life. And so I had heard of human design. It's been around since 1972 and I had heard of it off and on, but I chalked it up to another Enneagram, Strengths Finders, Myers-Briggs, those types of things, and they never really resonated with me. And when my sister-in-law sent me this text about my human design, she said, "Just read it." And I said, "Fine." And now I know that human design, the way it's different is that those tests are all answered from a mind that has been brought up in a certain way, taught certain things, conditioning, whatever. Human design is actually built by your birth time, your birthplace, and your birth date, and 3 months prior to that, and it brings out this beautiful chart that nobody knows what it means, but it's my job to help you really unravel it, and so it shows you how you're meant to move through the world, how people view you, the role you're here to play, and the fears running in the background that you don't even know are there. I mean, there's so many facets to your design, but it really I say that it doesn't put you in a box, it sheds the light on the box you put yourself in, and I've had 2,000 about a little over 2,000 people get their design with me, and only one has come back and said, "This doesn't feel like me," and we found out her birth time was wrong. And so, it's very accurate, it's just one of those things where just give it a chance and like I did, and it can change every aspect of your life.
Wow. That sounds so fascinating to
Yeah.
me. I love that you help to clarify a little bit about the different types of, personality tests. And many of us have heard of Myers-Briggs and all of this, but the point that you made about that it's the conditioned mind, the things that we're taught to think or ways that we're supposed to quote unquote
Yeah.
think. And so I think that's a great distinction. So thank you for sharing that, how this is very different than that.
Yes.
So that it really gives us an opportunity to understand it a little bit more fully. And so basically, what you're saying is you're looking at a lot of factors that are specific, very specific to you. Your time, place, birth, all of these things are what help you determine this, right?
Yes.
So, can we talk then a little bit more about how once you begin to understand these things about you and how you were created, how you can use those then to begin to bring your life into alignment or your business.
Mhm.
If you're struggling, maybe you feel like your business isn't as successful as you want it to be. How can we begin to use that?
Yeah. So I'll first talk about entrepreneurship. And with entrepreneurship and business building, we're inundated every day with do it this way, don't do it this way, this doesn't work anymore, whatever it might be. And it's very easy to fall into those trends and those hacks and tricks and it was other people's blueprints that worked for them because it was probably their design, right? And your design actually tells you and spells out how you're meant to market, how you're meant to sell, create your offers, show up in your business, et cetera, et cetera. And when you start to see that, every single one of my clients has a different business when we are done working together because they're in their business. It's not anyone else's ideas, which is super fascinating. So that's just briefly about business, but in life, it really helped me communicate better with my kids. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 18, and it helped me understand her on the next level, and it's been so magical for us. My spouse, it's I know him better. He knows why I'm crazy over here and I know why this part drove me crazy about him. And it's just I help corporate teams also where they wanna help with communication, they wanna help with effectiveness in their team, and when we're seen and we see others the way we're meant to, there's so many things that we don't bump up against that we normally would. There's the conflicts don't happen, we love ourselves more on a deeper level, and I've never really fully loved myself. I liked myself, right? But I never really fully loved myself because I was always fighting, "This is what I should do," and I never felt like it felt right. So it's a full yeah, it's a full self-love, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. I love the idea of it also, yes, if you're in business, you can use these strategies to really hone in on how you need to be running your business to be fully effective and to serve, your community or whatever it is that you're doing. But that it really makes us better humans with the people in our lives in general, right? Our spouses, our children. I think that's amazing. And you describing your relationship with your husband and like this drove me crazy about him and vice versa. And I can absolutely see that, in my own relationship. There's things about us that, of course, we love each other. And you deal with these little things that you think, like, why do they do it that way? But
Yeah.
when you realize that there's a reason why they do it this way, and when you can begin to understand that, I think there is more understanding and compassion, and you can have a better relationship. So I think that's tremendous.
Yes.
And you talk a lot about like the idea of you're not broken, right?
Mhm.
There's like nothing wrong with you. It's that you're misaligned or that maybe you're just kind of thinking about things not the way that maybe you need to. So do you want to talk a little bit more about what that means and what we can understand by it?
Yeah, so let me give you some examples because I think that's going to be the best way to understand it. When I say you're not broken, you're just misaligned, I mean that the way that everyone has been taught to build, to lead, to parent, to all the things is not how you're meant to do it. But we fall into the norm, which is the norm of exhaustion and burnout and overwhelm. It's not supposed to be like that. And so an example is a projector is one of the human design types. And the type is the highest level of your design. So most people, when you know your human design, you at least know your type, which a projector is one. And they are not an energy being. They are meant to only work 2 to 4 hours efficiently on a specific task. Otherwise, they will burn out faster than anybody else. They are they can walk into a room and feel the energy and get so depleted if it's negative energy more than anybody else. They see things and other people better than they see themselves. So their rest and recalibration is actually key to their success. And when they don't listen to that part of themselves, which is why they have the hardest time with the hustle culture and 9 hour, 8, 9 hour work days. Most of my clients who are projectors do not thrive in corporate. And so that's just an example. There's many other examples, but when you're not living in alignment with your design, you will feel that stress, frustration, burnout. And especially if you're a generator, you have an open aura. So if you are not in love with what you do every day, everyone around you will feel it and it will become an issue. And so it's really, really important for you to do what you love and love what you do.
Mm. Thank you for sharing those two briefly with us. Can you tell me how many designs there are? Is it like an infinite number, or are we sort of categorizing into larger groups?
Yeah. So I have yet to work with the same design. But as far as the energy types, which is again the highest level, there's 5 energy types. And then you go down and deeper and deeper and deeper than that. But yeah, there's manifesting generators, manifestors, reflectors, and projectors. So those are the highest types. And then you go down to profile as the next. And then you go down to all of your centers. Are they undefined, defined, and your channels and your superpowers? And it gets very excitingly nuanced, if that makes sense. So yeah, you're not like anybody else, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we can all recognize that none of us are exactly the same as anybody else, period, like full
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
And obviously, why would we be exactly like anybody else when there are so many things that make us different than everybody else? So, thank you though for sharing those kind of five high level so we can get a sense of just the basics, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, as you begin to get into time of birth and all of this, it gets very specific. And so then you can really truly understand who you are and why you are the way you are. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, where do I want to go? So I want to just ask you, you had the business that you described before, and that was a what multi six-figure business
It
that
was a
kind of
six-figure business. Yeah.
six-figure business that collapsed. And so, do you wanna tell us how that happened, why, and maybe, like, what you learned from it, and then how human design helped you kind of refocus and shift?
Yeah. I think I had known it for probably the last 2 years, but I just put my blinders on. That's what I do. I will hustle and grind my face off even if it's misaligned to myself and with when burnout is on the other side. But when I really started to realize that, I mean, out of the hundreds of people that I helped start their own businesses, very few were successful. And that was because I was giving them my same blueprint and my same checklist. And it wasn't designed for them. And so that part ate away at me. It was really hard for me to hear people's visions and dreams and wanting to come home to their babies and do all this stuff, and they never found success and they burnt out and just quit because they were misaligned. And so when I decided to just go away from that and really have that moment in time of recalibrating and going internal. And honestly, I lost my dad, I thought many times to myself, "This is I'm here for this one life, and I'm not gonna continue to do what other people say I should do in the way they say I should do it." And so I just dove deep into my design, and the more I understood myself, it's very fascinating because my design actually says that I am meant to build something really big, burn it all down, and build with what actually works and tell people what works so they can skip the steps and not have those failures. I mean, some of the parts of my design, I just almost cry every time. I have the trial and error theme where I am meant to fail forward more than most people so they can skip that, and that's what I'm doing. And it's really cool to know that you actually were living out your design even when you felt misaligned.
So interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. I love that you can really see patterns, right? Once you can
Yeah.
see where those patterns existed in your life and, it kind of clues you in into why you were doing things the way you were and like now where do you go? So I think that's so interesting and I love that. So thank you for sharing it. And so now if you're an entrepreneur and you want to grow your business or you are growing your business, how would you say understanding your human design will really help you in your trajectory?
It will help everything. I think the people that start their business with their design are going to have success much faster than those who, buy a blueprint or a funnel from somebody else, only because not because that person doesn't know what they're talking about, but it's designed for them. The majority of entrepreneurs that we see, the gurus that we see on social media, they do know their human design, and they're not talking about that. But it is really important to understand that we are meant to market, lead, create offers, we're actually meant to make money in different ways, and our design tells us that. And our undefined centers, which if you look at your chart, you have 9 centers, body centers on your body graph, and the ones that are not colored in are undefined, and those are the places you're here to gain wisdom in and where people will pay you for, what people will pay you for. And so it's really, really cool when people start to see their gifts and their life's work in their design. And so it really does come down to every facet of your business. When you know your design, you show up so authentically you, and not authenticity as in showing up with no makeup on and your hair a mess. Like that's what we kind of think about as authentic, but it's really just using your voice in the way it's meant to be used. For me, I was mentioning this to you before we started recording, I have a defined throat center with my sun gate. My One of my main gates is 20, which is the spontaneous speaker gate. So if I have a script that I'm reading from, I will shrink. It will not go well. And I am meant to just speak off the cuff. And some people need scripts. Some people need other people to be in conversation with to bring out what they're meant to say. So see how it's every single area of your business, which is why I love doing what I do, because I am the manifesting generator who is not meant for the linear path. I am meant to pivot and move quicker and skip steps and not have everything be the same. And if I had to work with clients like I used to, where everything was the same checklist, I would die in that business. And that's why I'm here.
Oh my gosh. Steph, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. I can absolutely see how we we see these gurus, quote unquote gurus, people who have successful businesses, and we think if I just do exactly what they did, I will have that success too. But what you're saying is really that's not how we're designed to be. We're not designed to just copy and paste what somebody else is doing. And we're really going to struggle if we try to do that. And so I think that's incredible that you are helping people understand that and find out what works for them and then follow that path. So
Yes. Yes.
super cool. And I feel like I must be one of those people that has to be in conversation with
Mm,
others to know what they need to say, because that's how I feel like I'm on this podcast all the
yeah.
time having conversations, and then stuff comes up for me and then I say it. So perhaps that's me.
It's interesting because I have a very individual design, very individual. And so it's really important for me to understand to my clients when they have a split definition or a triple definition, which either their environment is crucial or their collaborations are crucial. For me, I have my own, like my podcast is a solo podcast and that's what works for me. So it is really, really cool to understand that.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that for sure. And it's really got my little wheels spinning in my brain.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, let's at this point talk about, because you had mentioned earlier about how you work with also companies so that you have really good collaborative teamwork and efforts. And so, can we talk about how, for leadership, understanding your human design for the leader and the team, how that really can make a more successful endeavor?
Yeah. I mean, I think self-leadership is the number one important thing that you need to do as a leader. You need to understand yourself in order to be able to lead effectively. Because just for instance, if you have an undefined throat and you're speaking out of pressure and it doesn't come off well, it's not going to land well. And so it's really important for you to know yourself and then also your team. Because if you have a projector and a reflector, and if you have one of everything, let's say, the reflector, well, the manifestor is probably gonna be a little bit standoffish, and you're gonna think you did something wrong, and there is just unnecessary conflict when you don't understand the people that you're around and the people that you work with, and I think that's where a lot of burnout comes from in corporate, and one of the reasons I wanted to create that was because every single person in my life that has a corporate job hates their job. And I know it stems from not being seen and heard and validated. And when you start to understand that and see your people, they will start to love their job more. And we're not meant to be burnt out and frustrated and overwhelmed. And so it's our job as the leader to understand that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think I kind of chuckled a little bit when you mentioned that everybody who's in corporate like hates their job.
Mhm.
And it's probably not everybody. Okay.
Everyone that I know that
Yeah.
in my life, yes.
Yeah. No, no, but I'm sure the listeners can recognize themselves or people that they know. And I
Yeah.
certainly do recognize people who are just like miserable in their jobs because, like you said, you're not being heard, you're not being seen, you're not being understood. You can't contribute to the level that you are capable of because of that environment. And so, as a leader, to lead, you do need to know yourself and you need to know and understand your team to get the most out of people and to not just like in a use them kind of manner, but to be effective and successful.
And what
Yeah,
they're
I
here for too. I mean, everybody's designed to help in a specific way, lead in a specific way. Some of us are guides and teachers. Some of us are the initiators of the new things. And so when you don't know that about someone and you let's say they're not an initiator, but you force them to initiate something in a company, they're not going to like it. So,
Yeah, and it's gonna be very uncomfortable for them,
mhm.
and not, produce what you were hoping for. So, yeah,
Right.
I mean, it completely makes sense as we're discussing this. You can see that, how that would
Yes.
be, for sure. Okay, so let me just ask you this. Now, what is just one simple thing that the person listening can do today to kind of begin to design their life with some of these points that we're discussing?
Well, one thing that I had my clients do at the beginning of the year is really think about your business, your life, and where are the places that you're saying yes to, but your body's screaming no.
Mm.
And those are really places that we need to figure out how we can delegate or remove, because what's happening is that we're saying yes to things. There's actually something in your design called your authority, which is your decision making process. And a lot of the times we bypass that because we don't have that relationship with ourselves, and we let our mind take over, we let other people's judgments take over. And so that's one thing that what do you need to release in your day to day and your week to week that you're shoulding, that you don't love to do? Because that is leaking your energy. So when you don't know your design, that is probably the a big thing that you could do. When you do know your design, then it's, starting with your energy type is really important from your day to day.
Mm. Yeah, that's good to know. And I think that I can absolutely see how we often say yes to things because we feel like we should. And you
Mhm.
said, shoulding. And it's like that judgment, fear of what other people are going to think if we say no. And, all this kind of conditioning that we've grown up with or been raised with, and not understanding ourselves and how we can best serve our community, our family, the world. And so I think this is a great point, like how
Yeah.
important it is to understand ourselves so we can be our
Exactly.
best.
And honestly, even when we feel like we're hurting someone's feelings by saying no to something, we're doing them a disservice by not being true to ourselves. Because when you're not who you were designed to be, other people feel it, whether you understand it or not. My relationships are better all around because I know who I'm designed to be, how I'm designed to be. And I feel like we owe it to ourselves and everybody around us, because when we're the best we can be, then they are the best that they can be. So it's just been really cool to see it come about.
Yeah. No, I can absolutely see that, Steph. So thank you for sharing that. Again, it just feels like and you mentioned this earlier, that the authenticity piece of it, it's like when we're being who we truly are, there's no forced anything, right? And so,
Mhm.
and really, even though we think we can go into something and people are not going to know that we don't want to be there or that we don't really want to
Oh,
do
they
what we're
can feel
doing.
it,
Exactly.
especially the
Exactly.
projectors. The projectors will be able to tell 100%.
Nah. Yeah. So you're right. I think it's critical that we understand ourselves so we can be who we are supposed to be, so we can relate to others and, be more collaborative and have I guess you could say, kind of in a way, a smoother life, because you're not butting heads with people. You're not having fights with people or whatever that just are unnecessary
Mhm.
because you don't know and you don't
Yeah.
understand. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier about your podcast, The Human Design Advantage. And so, would you like to share with us a little bit more about what you talk about on the show? You said it's a solo podcast. So, do you release episodes once a week?
Yeah, it's once a week, and I am gonna start bringing clients on just for talks about how it's changing their business and their relationships. But I really just today I recorded one, and it's about why you're feeling meh in your business, why your business doesn't feel on fire right now. And it goes into the parts of your human design that will actually ignite that fire and get you back into the game, essentially. So it's really all different parts of human design, superpowers, vibe of tribe, the people you're meant to help. I really, my biggest thing is helping you come home to yourself before the world told you who to be. And we're in this new era. I don't know if you've heard of that, but we're entering this new era, and our business and the world and the universe is calling for us to be ourselves, because that's the only way the collective is going to move forward. And so that's why human design is becoming more popular right now. It's just crucial in order to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for mentioning that. And I agree. I think a lot of people are looking at numerology and understanding numbers and how the years add up to a number and it kind of means a certain thing. And so we've come into 2026 now, and that's a 1 or 10, depending on how you look at that.
Mhm.
So, talking about, you know, coming into a new era, do you want to elaborate any more on that and like how we can use human design to truly facilitate this changing that's occurring?
Yeah. So this is going to sound kind of like a history lesson for a second, but so we all of the big systems are collapsing. Education system, the medical system, the political system, it's all collapsing in its own way. Education was very much I want it in the past was very much I want to teach people who are going to listen and work. So work on assembly lines and all of that and not thinkers. And so it's all shifting, and you see it slowly in the school systems. You see a lot of people starting to homeschool to do things differently, and it is just calling us slowly as a collective to come to the individual, to come to not as like in a selfish way, but the more we get to understand ourselves, the more we're gonna help the collective, if that makes sense, because we do have a piece of the puzzle that we're here to do, and we have all fallen in this line of essentially the assembly line of this is how you need to be successful. When what's actually happened is we have shut down our own design. And so the more you can come home to that, especially now, if you listen to any podcast about 2026, 2027, the new era, you can feel that shift. And 2020 was when it kind of started to shake up. Okay, they say that it shook up all the bad stuff that we don't need anymore and we're getting rid of it. And just coming home to ourselves because that's how we're going to move the collective forward. And yeah, you see it in so many different areas, but it's just human design is I believe, and this is one of the hills I stand on, is that you have to understand who you are at this deep level in order to be the person that you were meant to be, in order to get to where you're meant to go,
Mm.
which in turn helps the collective, you know?
Right, right. And thank you for going into a little bit more depth on that. And again, it just goes back to understanding yourself, knowing yourself, and how you fit in the world at this time, because there's a reason you are here now,
Mhm.
now,
Yeah.
right? And so understanding that and what purpose you serve for the collective and for this, evolution that we're in is important. And so, yeah, I agree completely. So thank you for that. Okay. Where do I want to go? Is there anything else that you feel like you haven't shared to this point in our conversation that you really feel like the person listening needs to hear? What would you like to share?
I think, and I think I've said it a couple times, but I'm just super passionate about that life isn't meant to be hard and life isn't meant to feel overwhelming, exhausting, frustrating, like you're burnt out. You're just not living in alignment with who you were designed to be and how you were designed to live it. And once you start to unravel that, you become so okay with being you that you really don't care in the best way about anything else around you. And it's a pretty magical thing to understand that. So I guess I think it's just in business, in relationships, in parenting, it's not meant to feel like ick all the time. Uh, it's just we have to understand ourselves and those and the people we love around us.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for that reiteration of this because you're so right. We, I don't know if it's by choice or chance or whatever, but we have all just been raised to follow along and do the thing that they said that we should do, and this is how we should do it, and this is the order we should do it in. And we're not there anymore. It
Mhm.
is absolutely
Yeah.
changing.
It is shifting a lot. I mean, even going back to the education stuff, so many people don't go to college anymore and you don't need to for a lot of things. And it's just it is. By 2027, the shift is gonna be in total place, and I'm really excited for it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, you kind of got my curiosity peaked. So we are just in the beginning of 2026 when we're releasing this episode. So we'll see what happens then. But again, I just want to point out that I love this idea of we don't have to live our life frustrated and, um, feeling like everything is so hard.
Yeah.
But we have to understand ourselves and who we are and all of that so that we can live our lives in alignment so that it is smooth and, as it should be. So,
Yeah. And it's what I always tell my clients too is that this doesn't mean there's not going to be hiccups or frustrations that you have, but you understand how to deal with them better. And when you know your decision making process in your design, it helps immensely with many things in life.
oh, Steph, that was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that because I think you're right. We can't forget that there are always going to be things that come up
Mhm.
in life and in our world that happen that, maybe we don't like, okay?
Yeah.
Or they're challenges or whatever. But by understanding how we are meant to operate and, like you said, the decisions that we're making, it's going to make a difference in how we respond to those
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So at this point, I love to have my guests share books or podcasts or anything that they have found to be helpful or beneficial. If there's anything you'd like to suggest that the listeners check out, I'd love to have you do that now.
Gosh, I listen to so many podcasts. There is a podcast called To Be Magnetic that I really, really like. It's not all about human design, but it has human design pieces in it, but it's really just about being you, and that's the other thing that happens with human design. When you become so you, you become a magnet to everything that's meant for you, and so that's pretty cool too. So To Be Magnetic is a really good one. I'm reading a book right now called Outlive, I think is what it's called, because my dad had early onset Alzheimer's, and my stepdad now was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I wanna know how I can make myself healthy for the long term. I wanna be here for a long time for my grandkids, and so that's a big, big book that I'm reading right now. But yeah, those are my 2 biggest things. A kind of a way out there, podcast I listen to is called Next Level Soul. That one is something that I've become amazed with this year too.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that book recommendation and the podcasts. I will detail those in the show notes. And I think I just love the idea of giving people something that they maybe had never heard of or thought to explore, right? It's just like if you're listening to this, there's a reason you're listening and hearing this. And to hear these recommendations for books or podcasts, it's like maybe this is the next step for you in learning and understanding and growing. And so that's why I love to get the feedback from my guests because who knows who needs to hear what
Yeah,
when.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So cool stuff. Is there any books on human design specifically that you think would be good sort of initiation into learning and understanding?
There is one, can't remember exactly what it's called. It's all about your human design authority. Maybe it's just called that. I'm not quite sure. I can send that to you after I look up the name, but that's I think human design is new enough that there's not a whole lot out there, which is cool, but also hard sometimes when I'm working with clients, but I also love that they get to find themselves through working with me. Like I said, it's been around for a long time, but there is a book called The Gene Keys and people who originally created human design, but it's very esoteric and it's very hard to understand. My mentor, who I got certified with, completely rewrote human design in a different language so we can understand it better. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that too. I think that it gives us just another piece of the puzzle, right?
Mm.
Obviously, you want to work with someone who, like you, who is certified in human design and really understands the nuances and can help you specifically to discover that about yourself. So, yeah, absolutely. But for someone who's maybe not to that point yet and just wants to get some basic understanding, I think that that's helpful.
Yeah, and for sure get my because I have a free business starter kit too. You get a ton of stuff in that. So that's where you should start too if you're a business owner and wanting to know how your human design works in your business, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So if you want to share now, how they would be able to access that, share your website or any social media sites that you're on so people can follow you, that would be
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, so it's just Stef Carlstedt slash HD report. My name is spelled weird. So hopefully you can look at it in the show notes. But yeah, and you get your free human design plus 12-page PDF plus 10-part audio series, which kind of takes you through the different pieces of design that will fit into your business and show you what it can do for you. So that's a really good place to start to kind of get a grasp on what this actually is. And then I am on Instagram as my main platform, Stefanie Carlstedt. So
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you again for that, and I will detail it in the show notes. So
yeah,
yes, absolutely, we'll have the spelling in there, or the easy link to your website and to that resource, which sounds fabulous. And thank you for that. And so, yeah, absolutely, I will link all of that.
yes.
Steph, this has been so fascinating, such an interesting conversation, and really has absolutely piqued my curiosity on learning more myself about human design and how it can help me and my family and the world at large.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you for your
welcome.
time and this knowledge and sharing it with all of us today.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll talk more soon. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.